Good afternoon. Did you all have a nice lunch? There's nothing like holding a panel session right after lunch, so we'll try our best to entertain you. My name is Dae Chung. I'm with the U.S. Department of Energy. I am very pleased and grateful for the opportunity to be part of this forum, especially a very important topic related to enhancing public confidence and trust related to nuclear energy matters. I'm going to introduce my colleagues, my panelists, in a few minutes. I have the pleasure to have a double duty today. I'm going to be giving my own remarks. I'm going to try to moderate this session. And also, we'll hope that we have at least 10, 20 minutes or so toward the end of this session to be able to listen to your feedback and be able to answer your questions so that this becomes a more or less a dialogue as opposed to just five of us talking about our own perspectives. The other thing that I'm very grateful for, as I was listening to the earlier session with regard to North Korean nuclear issues and other very complicated matters, I am very delighted that I'm joined in this less controversial topical area as well. So you can relax a little bit. To my immediate left, I have Professor An Jung Hong. He's at Berkeley University in California. His previous positions included member of Nuclear and Radiation Studies Board at the National Research Council and National Academies. He was also assistant professor at Tokai University. Currently is a geological faculty scientist, as I said, at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory as well. To his immediate left, Dr. Kim Myung-ja. Currently, she is the president of Korea Federation of Women's Science and Technology Association. Previous positions included a member of the 17th National Assembly of the ROK. She was the Minister of Environment from 1999 to 2003 and is the longest serving female minister in Korean history. She was the winner of the Presidential Award for the Advancement of Science and Technology. To her left, we have Professor Lee Woon-chul, Department of Engineering, Nuclear Engineering, Seoul University. Previous positions included a member of a Presidential Council for Science and Technology, Dean of Research Affairs at Seoul University, also President of Korean Nuclear Society. To his left, Dr. Tatsujiro Suzuki, Vice Chairman of Japan Atomic Energy Commission. His previous positions included Associate Vice President of the Socio-Economic Research Center at the Central Research Institute of Electric Power Industry in Japan. He was a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Energy Economics. Also, he was a professor at the Graduate School of Keio University. So I'm going to start giving my own remarks. I have prepared remarks, and I'll give, it'll probably take about 5 to 7 minutes. And I would ask that my other panelists to limit their comments to about 7 minutes. That way we can leave enough time for questions and answers from the audience. As you know, nations in the world have needed to respond to several significant man-made or natural events over the 10 years. How we have responded, those events demonstrated our resilience and challenged our technological capability and competence, sometimes demonstrating creativity and innovation to help solve problems, and other times humbling us because of our false sense of security or complacency with the technology. How we prepare for, and when possible, seek to preclude these events is an indicator of what I would call our safety culture. Fostering public trust and confidence is a deliberate and necessary endeavor, and it's built on transparency, openness, and engagement. I'm going to also touch upon the reality of a new media that makes building public confidence and trust a bit more daunting, challenging, but very necessary process. So I'm going to give quick examples of three major events that had occurred in the United States and draw some conclusion with respect to the critical importance of safety culture. April 10, 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil drilling rig exploded. 11 crew members died from that accident. Back in February 1st, 2003, Space Shuttle Columbia was destroyed in a disaster that claimed the lives of all 7 of its crew members. On March 6, 2002, at the Davis-Besse nuclear power plant, a hole in the reactor pressure vessel head about the size of an American football was discovered. The remaining thickness of the reactor pressure vessel head was reduced to only 3/8 of an inch. Reading associated investigation or accident analysis reports for all these 3 events, I found there was a common element called poor safety culture. Let me read a couple of passages from the respective reports. The report to the President from National Commission on BP Deepwater Horizon concluded that the explosive loss of the well could have been prevented and that there were such systematic failures in risk management that they placed in doubt the safety culture of the entire industry. A report of the Columbia Accident Investigation Board noted, "It is our view that complex systems almost always fall in complex ways, and we believe it would be wrong to reduce the complexities and weaknesses associated with these systems to some simple explanation. The shuttle program's complex structure erected barriers to effective communication, and its safety culture no longer asks enough hard questions about risk." Poor safety culture means that there will be greater risk of operations and inevitable loss of public confidence. Nuclear industry and regulators have devoted significant efforts to better understand safety culture. Both the Institute for Nuclear Power Operation in the United States and the World Association of Nuclear Operators developed what they call principles of strong safety culture. There are basically 8 different elements, including things like personal responsibility, the concept that trust permeates, a questioning attitude, demonstrated leadership. 2 key points that I thought was worth emphasizing. First, effective safety culture will promote trust and confidence within the organization itself, whether it's a regulator, whether it's operator or supplier, and also with the public. Second, safety culture is both organizational and individual responsibility. Today, rebuilding, enhancing public trust and confidence is profoundly critical, as you all know. Recently, the World Energy Council conducted a survey after the Fukushima event. For me, their survey conclusions highlighted 2 key points. First, the importance of strong and independent regulator and safety structure. Second, the importance of public understanding and acceptance of the technology. The survey also concluded that the most pressing barrier to future acceptance of nuclear power is public perception. This is why it's ever more important to address this particular topic. So when we think about what are some practical yet effective ways to enhance public confidence. I want to highlight a few points. First, risk communication. Risk communication provides the essential links between risk analysis, risk management, and public perception and understanding. Effective risk communication helps to reconcile differing perceptions of risks and gain an appreciation for stakeholders' points of view. Communication must be plain language so that it will be clear and easily understood by stakeholders not that familiar with the technology. That's an important point. Effective stakeholder engagement is, as I said, deliberate, but often time-consuming effort. But it has repeatedly been shown to be very effective in terms of its return on investment. Not only for public confidence and trust, but also for developing better public policy as well. I want to talk a little bit about the reality of today's social media, the instantaneous and diverse means in terms of how people find out about certain event, how they develop certain perceptions because of the wide use of the various social media. Admiral Thad Allen, who led the Hurricane Katrina recovery efforts, as well as the Deepwater Horizon response, once noted, I quote, "There is never going to be a major event in this country, again, without public participation. There's a growing discontinuity between what the American public expects the government to do and what the government can do." This is true for any country today, in my opinion. In order to maintain public confidence and trust, we need to be aware of this discontinuity and address it in our public outreach efforts. At some critical point in the process, when we talk about rebuilding or enhancing public confidence, the trust will be more about relationship than information. Today, building relationships has to consider, as I said, use all the tools and techniques available, including social networking, internet, other tools to connect people and allow participation in the process. As we embrace the new media, we still need to maintain the familiar cornerstones of public outreach that have been effective. Just building on our traditional approach, that is, the low-tech, old-fashioned personal touch provided by an organization that is part of the community and accountable to the community. It is a citizen of the community that is open and transparent and encourages involvement, interaction, and learning. We need to better able to respond more quickly, however, while ensuring the reliability and accuracy of the information we provide. Providing wrong information in a timely manner is worse than providing no information, in my opinion. It is delicate balance in the aftermath of an accident, particularly, to maintain public trust and confidence when information in the fog of war may not be accurate. The ability to place into proper context all the information into a coherent, accurate statement is challenging, but very necessary. In addition, whereas in the past we have tended to rely on our convincing details about how safe our technology is, I believe that we now need to broaden our message to explain what we will do in the event of an accident. Proper emergency planning involving all stakeholders, including the local communities and national authorities, in both public outreach and in practicing emergency preparedness, will improve public trust and confidence and demonstrate the organization's continued principal value of safety, along the lines of what INPO and WANO have tried to conceptualize. There's enormous equity, goodwill in terms of what can be established by transparency, again, effective risk communication, and openness. In conclusion, nuclear safety is a public trust. Public confidence is public trust. They are not optional byproducts of our operations or businesses. They are foundational and must be woven into our safety culture fabric. There are 4 simple and straightforward concepts that I believe are essential for rebuilding and maintaining that public trust. They are: 1, be a learning organization. Learn from lessons and best practice of others. 2, safety culture must be embraced at all levels of an organization. It's both individual and organizational responsibility. In actions and words, a visible and vigorous safety culture is necessary for public trust and confidence. Without it, it is nearly impossible to even ask for such a confidence from the public's view. Work every day to keep the public trust through transparency, accountability, and effective shareholder engagement. Lastly, embrace the new media reality and establish meaningful and genuine relationship. I want to conclude by this particular remark. Build trust before it will be tested. Thank you. Now, Dr. An will give his remarks.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think your remarks are really covering the whole range of the topics, and so I'm not so sure I can add anything new to it. But in this talk, I'd like to consider public confidence building in nuclear safety by proposing to adopt a newly emerging way of thinking about safety called resilience engineering, in contrast to conventional error counting paradigm, where erratic human or organizational performance is considered to degrade an otherwise well-designed and safe system. For example, for Fukushima accident, analyses were already made by numerous investigation committees. Detailed and thorough forensic-like analyses still need to be performed to understand how this accident developed, but it is already clear that the accident became severe because of a station blackout, loss of ultimate heat sink, and delays in taking key actions to mitigate the accident. Most importantly, delays in starting containment venting and seawater injection. This observation immediately leads to the question, why couldn't these be avoided? Because to avoid such situations, nuclear reactors are designed and equipped with multiple independent measures based on the defense in depth concept. In addition, various common mode failures at the social technology, science technology society interface are observed in this accident. In these observations, they focused on erratic human or organizational performance that could degrade an otherwise well-designed and safe system. The assumption seems to be that safety, once established, could and should be maintained by requiring that human performance stay within prescribed boundaries or norms. And once an accident occurs, humans are regarded as unreliable and limited system components and assumed to degrade flawless system performance. However, in reality, people often provide a positive contribution to safety through their ability to adapt to change, gaps in system design, and situations unplanned for. Thus, conventional way of thinking about safety that regards system components and human in a static manner seems to have become obsolete. Complex systems are dynamic, and the state of dynamic stability may change into a state of dynamic instability. In a world of finite resources, of irreducible uncertainty, and of multiple conflicting goals, safety is created through proactive, resilient processes rather than through reactive barriers and defenses. And safety and risk in complex systems are emergent, not resultant properties. Safety and risk cannot be predicted or modeled on the basis of constituent components and their interactions. For a complex system and society, we need high resilience, the ability to create foresight rather than hindsight, to anticipate the changing shape of risk before failure and harm occurs. Here, resilience is defined as the intrinsic ability of a system to adjust its functioning prior to, during, or following changes and disturbances so that it can sustain required operations under both expected and unexpected conditions by detecting the drift into failure that happens to seemingly safe systems before breakdowns occur. For these to be realized, it is imperative, first, to analyze stakeholders and to develop a comprehensive set of measures corresponding to each stakeholder group. For a country that has a nuclear system, resilience needs to be considered and implemented at different levels of individual reactors, of nuclear fuel cycle or fleet of reactors, of energy portfolio, and of the country. The Japanese nuclear industries and the regulatory agencies were completely opposite of this. I'm sorry, Professor Suzuki. They relied to a large extent on barriers and defenses in depth in a very incomplete or perhaps wrong manner. They did not adopt the emerging concept of risk-informed regulations or evolutions of the international and domestic environment. People's priority shifted from economic growth to a higher level of safety and peace of mind. Policymakers of Japan kept basically the same old policies for more than 40 years without backup plans preparing for such disasters as the present accident. Lack of resilience is also observed in incomplete set of measures for monitoring the system performance. Basically, performance of the nuclear power system was monitored by two measures: the cost of electricity generation and risk in terms of the exposure dose to people, which is converted to the number of potential deaths by radiation. Incompleteness of the measure set implies that our understanding of the system performance was poor and one-sided. We ignored a variety of stakeholders and their needs and priorities. The suite of measures is essential for making a system resilient, and by public participation can be made more complete and updated, resulting in more resilient society and system. An example for making a country's nuclear fleet more resilient is replacement of old reactors with new ones, for example. Life extension of aged reactors has usually been attempted because of various difficulties in replacing reactors. No countries have successfully achieved this replacement on the commercial basis. In consideration of resilient nuclear utilization, the important part would be about management and the destinations of high-level wastes, spent fuels, and radioactive waste from decommissioning, as well as safety of individual reactors. Depending on how they are treated, the impact on the society and furthermore on the future generations would be significantly different. Advanced nuclear technologies will provide a greater variety and thus resilience of options for people to choose depending on scenarios for their future. Future generations will also need diversity in options. Passing precious technological options to future generations is one way of us being responsible. It should be noted that the development of technologies need a long leading time for them to be actually utilized. With diversity in technological options, a country can flexibly cope with changes in circumstances in an uncertain future, internationally and domestically. It is crucially important that technology development is carried out based on public support. With flexibility and open mind, highly resilient nuclear technology can be developed and utilized in harmony with and support of and for the people. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kim Myung-ja will give her prepared remarks and comments. Please.
Yes. I'm pleased to invite you at this meaningful gathering of ASEAN 2013 Nuclear Forum. And I also thank Dr. Zhang for his excellent introductory remarks, particularly stressing the safety culture and building trust. For the sake of maintaining a sustainable and secure nuclear industry, it is clear that substantial challenges exist in working to building public trust at the local, national, and regional levels. As things stand in Korea, I'm of the view that one conspicuous barrier to achieving social consensus on nuclear energy is the reality that a small number of vocal groups who are split over pros and cons of nuclear power plant often dominate the debate, while the majority remains passive. This has resulted in creating an environment where a genuine, forward-looking discourse is difficult. In this regard, we need to bring attention to a number of factors influencing public's attitude, public's perspectives on nuclear energy, and the challenges in generating an open and productive public discussion. Along these lines, I would like to highlight 3 points. First, one strong factor undergirding the public's attitude toward nuclear energy is a perception of risks associated with nuclear image, which is strongly influenced by rare, high-profile incidents that stand out vividly in public's conscience. As a result, people tend to ignore such evidence that would contradict their preset beliefs, as belief has a momentum, its own momentum. To be sure, factual information concerning risk probability has often proven insufficient, if not useless, in convincing the public of nuclear safety. Second, given this significant gap between the public's perceptions and those of the scientific community, it will be necessary to find measures of presenting facts both in ways that the public can understand and in a manner that is detached from external interests, bias, or partisanship. In this regard, one must recognize that attitudes toward nuclear power have a tendency to vary across ideological spectrum. By the same token, it should also be noted that perceptions vary across gender lines. Third, anti-nuclear movement in Korea are powerful, organized, and dedicated. Because of this, they can easily generate certain levels of fear and anxiety in the minds of general public. Adding to this is the fact that media in Korea is sometimes blamed for playing a negative role, as it is ideologically divided, with some inclined to focus on sensationalism. Furthermore, some within political circles have a tendency to play to this media orientation as they try to reflect what their constituencies want with a view to gaining popularity from them. Then, what approach should be taken? In light of these recognized difficulties, effective and meaningful communication is without a doubt the key to helping build public confidence in the area of nuclear safety. Thus, we arrive at a point where we must evaluate whether, in the absence of a well-designed strategy to improve communication, it is likely that we can generate significant public support for nuclear power policy in a post-Fukushima social political environment. Having laid the question on the table, we need to ask ourselves what such an approach would look like, considering the complexity of the task involved. There is no shortcut in gaining full public acceptance of nuclear power. It is clear, however, that we need to help the public realize that the use of nuclear power is inevitable, especially in the case of Korea, given that all possible options have been duly analyzed. It is also important to keep in mind that this information will not be well appreciated unless it is presented by a trusted source in a manner that, both in terms of language and style, is clear and accessible. If and when individuals do not have hands-on experience on potential risks, they tend to rely on those whom they trust. Thus, it is essential that the public messages from this trusted source be formulated and delivered in plain language and in a clear and honest manner. What then are the underlying principles and lessons learned for communication on nuclear issues? Without a doubt, stakeholder involvement is an imperative to building confidence on nuclear safety issues. To this end, it is critically important that policymakers and those within the nuclear community identify these important stakeholders and analyze the roles that they play within the broader context. It is also essential that the issues and concerns of the stakeholders are taken into due account while at the same time making all efforts to do so in a transparent and interactive manner to ensure accountability. We do need to keep in mind that considering the diverse and multifaceted nature of the stakeholders involved, a one-size-fits-all strategy will not likely work as we push forward to achieve effective communication. In a nutshell, it is important to understand that stakeholder involvement should not be viewed as a convenient public relations tool to help in image building or in generating acceptance for a decision taken behind closed doors by experts. Rather, it should be an integral part of a holistic decision-making process. Last but not least, I cannot emphasize enough that building trust is the most important aspect of all, as my two colleagues emphasized. Indeed, trust is a key element of any successful conflict resolution effort. It is the driving motivation behind such measures as information sharing, enhanced cooperation, and problem-solving initiatives. We can earn trust through the integration of the following three factors. First, competency, including knowledge, skill, and experience. Second, integrity, where confidence is built by a consistency of actions, the credibility of communication, and a congruence of word and deed. And third, benevolence, demonstrated through interactive communication, a delegation of decision-making, and a sharing of control. Institutionally, trust can be strengthened by demonstrating technical competence and adherence to high standards both in performance and reporting. This should be done through a reinforcement of the perceived credibility of the responsible organizations and reviewing agencies. In conclusion, I would like to cite a visionary quote by Abraham Lincoln made in 1865, which highlights the importance of trust. On the back end of having weathered immense social and political divisions, which was played out over a 4-year brutal civil war, he stated, I quote, "In this age, in this country, public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Against it, nothing can succeed. Whoever molds public sentiment goes deeper than he who enacts statutes or pronounces judicial decisions," unquote. As we move forward at this juncture of nuclear industry after the Fukushima disaster, let us keep these principles in mind. Thank you.
Professor Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the previous three panelists already mentioned about the public acceptance problems, well, let me put it this way. If you meet in the poll the question like, what do you think about the nuclear safety of nuclear power plant, then that cannot be on public acceptance, because this morning's newspaper read the Japanese, almost 70% of Japanese people is against a reoperation of nuclear power plant in Japan. The situation has been changed after the Fukushima accident. I guess almost the same situation in Korea. Okay, so this panelist, I would rather talk about the public acceptance rather than public acceptance. I would like to mention about the Korean special situations. Okay, as you all know, the Korea has to import the more than 97% of the first energy from abroad. Okay, which means we are very poor countries in natural resources. We don't have any other substitutions for nuclear, and we are not expecting any substitutions in the near futures, at least 20 years. So the public acceptance, before we discuss the public acceptance, we have to mention about the Korean situations. So the peoples recently talk about the energy mix, readjustment of energy mix problems. That should be considered the validity of national energy plan, and we have to think about the availability of renewable energy. The questions raised like, are there any alternatives to fossil fuels? Should we comply with national conceptions for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Changes, and how to replace the fossil fuel have to be reduced. And the other questions, nuclear power plant accidents are avoidable. Can we prevent the nuclear power plant accident? Is the nuclear power plant design that can minimize the impact of the accident possible? Alternately, can we protect the life and the environment? Okay. That should consider the recent environment in nuclear and some energy situations. And in Korea, we have a very urgent questions like management and recycling of spent fuels. We should prepare for saturation of on-site spent fuel pool. Present status and storage of spent fuel and expected saturation time count and it has to count plant of spent fuel pool saturations. The ultimate management options of spent fuel is not so diverse in Korea. Well, I guess there's only two or three options. One is direct disposal, but the question is direct disposal is possible. And second is feasibility of reprocessing. Reprocessing is possible in Korea. Third possibility is the feasibility of recycling with pyro processing technologies, which has not been proved yet. So we are in the dilemma which option we should go in the future for spent fuel storage. And another point you have to mention is long-term management alternatives. We have to prepare more complete management, and we have to make a decision about the ultimate disposal treatment which is required, and temporary options for interim storages. However, we need the space, we need some site for interim storage, which is it's never easy to obtain. So we want to have some public debate from this year. So current issues about the national consensus should reach an agreed settlement of the sustainability of nuclear energy first, since the new cabinet will start next week. So we are expecting some energy mix mix will be adjusted. However, we don't expect the nucleus can be expanded than previous. Well, it include they should establish a long-term national energy policy in our view. Second is driving for the development of renewable energy, and the energy saving. And also, we need to export the nuclear power plant. So these kind of things should be considered in adjustment of energy mix. And so we have to restore the public trust of the nuclear power safety. It needs some effort for nuclear accident prevention and gladness of nuclear safety-related informations and improvement of safety consciousness of the operators. And the urgent thing, as I said, the public acceptance on a special matter, which is spent fuel management. Is it a valuable resource or a useless trash to be disposed? That should be decided before we go on. And convergence of opinions by social publicity and improvement of public acceptance for interim storage siting. And those things are very important. Since previous speakers, panelists already mentioned about the informations, the public, to acquire the public acceptance, I think a very important factor is how can make the public to have quick and accurate and transparent information from the government. This is a very difficult thing to acquire. The characteristic of information has two very difficult things. One is the quickness. Second is accuracy. But in order to get the information as quick as possible, then the data and the information or analysis cannot be done in such a short time. If you want some accurate and some countable result, countable information, then it takes time. So that dilemma should be resolved. But the people does not wait until such an answer is coming out. The government, especially in Korea, the government is in very difficult positions. So when they announce some kind of things, in the early stages, and or later, if they analyze the sequence and they announce some different things, then people's complaining the government are cheated the public, okay? And they try to hide the information. They try to reduce the consequences like that. So that's a very dilemma in the safety bureaus so far. So I don't know what is the solution for that. However, we have to resolve those things. So we need the public to understand also. And we have to use, as David said, the simple word, plain word, and easy word, and not using some such difficult terminologies that I don't know the answer yet. Okay? But we will try to get the public acceptance. Our government will do that, I guess. Thank you.
At this time, Dr. Suzuki will give his remarks.
Thank you. As the last speaker, it's very difficult to add substance, so I will forget about my prepared speech. I will focus on my personal experience regarding how we are struggling in getting a public trust in Japan right now. As I said in the paper, that one of the serious impacts of the Fukushima accident was loss of public trust. It's not just public trust on nuclear safety, but overall nuclear policy governance, including energy policy itself. My personal experience, just 1.5 years ago, I was here at Assam Plenum, and I made a speech. At the beginning, I said, Atomic Energy Commission is not responsible for nuclear safety. That statement was widely quoted as I'm evading my responsibility for the accident. And it was very tricky operation of the videotape. But I have to apologize for that misleading statement. And I have to clarify that. Of course, I feel I'm responsible for what happened. And I'm legally regret. But what I meant was Atomic Energy Commission was legally separated from the safety regulation and the promotional role. And, but that kind of this perception that whatever I say can be misinterpreted. It's very difficult in that environment. And the key word I'd like to stress in the public trust is transparency, as many of you have already said. Again, let me give you my personal experience. I was the chair of the subcommittee on the nuclear fuel cycle discussion, and we almost completed the study. But then the newspaper reported that we had so-called closed meetings behind the scenes. And it was taped by some kind of hidden camera, and the hidden tape recorder was broadcasting on the media. And I was the chair, so I was heavily attacked. And we admitted that it was a mistake to invite the so-called direct stakeholders, utilities, and the reprocessing companies in the secretariat meetings. It was perceived as a maneuvering of the public discussion. And I tried to, of course, avoid everything I could to not to do that. But the fact that we had meetings with those people were already pretty bad. And so the government set up independent study group to verify all of these processes. And they found out the so-called transparency and the fairness of the process was hurt. So although the substance of the discussion was okay, and so that lesson was very hard lesson for me. And in fact, Atomic Energy Commission immediately adopted new rules to improve transparency, which I learned from actually Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States. We have 5 commissioners, and now 3 out of 5 commissioners meet anytime we should keep the record of the discussion. And also, whenever commissioner meets outside of the government, stakeholders or experts, we keep the record. And also, the third point is, when we prepare the documents, even for draft stage, we keep the record who made the comments, who modified the substance, sentences, and so on, because we try to keep all the records for in the future. The decision process can be traceable. And the heavily criticized operation was that somebody actually manipulated the draft before the final document. So we try to improve all these things. This is tough because you challenge the regular past operation of the bureaucracy, and it is very difficult for us to do it. But those things are not enough, of course, and that's the first thing to do. And Atomic Energy Commission again published a new statement in December 2012, which I mentioned in the paper, that 4 principles, which I think you have already all of you mentioned. One is so-called accountability of policy decisions. When you have a policy decision, we should have evidence for that policy. Second is disclosure of so-called accurate information. As you said, accuracy is very important. But in case of the emergency, we may have to deliver information quickly, even though if it's may not be accurate. That's an exceptional case. But basically, we try to do as accurately as possible. Third point is the whole process, rather than just the information, the decision itself. Whole process should be transparent and fairness to all the stakeholders. And also, we should enhance the public participation in decision-making process. This is also difficult for us to do right now, but we have to do it. Then finally, easy language to understand for the public. This is also difficult for a nuclear energy case. Finally, we think we need more face-to-face communication with the local public. We haven't done that much, and particularly after Fukushima, whenever I go to the local site, it's quite different feeling could be generated after we had a face-to-face dialogue, because people didn't realize what kind of person is making decisions. But if you see each other, it makes a big difference. Also, for us, we don't know how the people in the local area actually thinking right now, even though our comments is very harsh. But if you meet together, some kind of common value can be generated. So face-to-face communication is very important. So we're recommending institutionalize such a face-to-face communication in the local community, which is happening in a voluntary base in local sites, like Kashiwazaki Kariwa plant site. The local public have their own meeting with utilities and government officials. But I think this is a good idea to generate the public confidence, but we have not institutionalized it. So we hope we can do it as a legal condition. Finally, public trust is not just domestic issues. I like to emphasize public trust as an international public trust. And transparency of decision-making process in Japan should be transparent to outside Japan too. And one specific example I like to say is the reprocessing issue, which Dr. Lee mentioned, that large stockpile of plutonium issue is a major concern for international community. I think the transparency and public trust issue can be also open to the international community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I open up for any questions from audience, I'd like to just point out a couple of things that may be asking ourselves, including myself, some clarification. Dr. Ahn talked about complexity associated with predicting human performance in the context of already having to deal with very complex systems. So we want to maybe clarify or expand on that difficulty between managing both people aspect as well as machine or technological aspects. Dr. Kim talked about public sentiment, a few making decisions as opposed to having a social consensus. So maybe we want to illuminate some of our discussions on that aspect. So may I ask Dr. Ahn to elaborate
Sure.
on your resilience engineering concept, particularly how would you see getting closer in terms of understanding that human complexity and machine complexity and interaction between two media?
I think human factors have been a major consideration since at least 3 Mile Island in the nuclear engineering world. But seems to me that we always think that human factors are kind of negative thing. We do make things wrong and do failure. But if you carefully observe what happened, for example, in the Fukushima accident, there are many positive things done by operators and numerous people. And when we consider safety or public trust, we need to take that factor into account more structured manner. We tend to think that is kind of a luck or fortunate that we have such a good people there, but there must be some deep things in there, and as we cannot predict how I behave tomorrow or how I behave in a year from now. We have such an unpredictability and complexity in the system already, and that is the same for the external factors. So we have variability both inside and outside. So if we try to predict and consider some prefixed measures for making systems safe, we tend to lose such a good factors of human contributions. So this resilience engineering or engineering resilience has emerged recently in France, École Mines, some other schools there. And I studied together with those people, and I come to think this is more like the martial arts. You prepare for it, but do not prepare too much so that you make yourself very stiff. So I think this is very much a familiar concept to we Asian people in particular. But we need to understand more structured manner and make it more practical in this particular nuclear field. That's my immediate thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of bringing better consensus, the views of the subject matter experts, the views of local community, the views of the national community, the views of the global community, maybe Dr. Kim and Dr. Suzuki can comment on what are some of your practical ideas that you might want to apply in terms of getting that better sense of unity in terms of understanding, whether it's technological competence or calculated risks or certain messages that could be routine messaging as well as messages that would come about as a result of an event. Can you comment on Dr. Suzuki followed by Dr. Kim?
When we say communication, we used to think that delivering a message or talk to the people. But I'd like to emphasize is before we talk to the people, we should listen to the people. And that was a mistake we made actually when we have a public hearing in Iwaki. We sit like this. We sat like this.
Yeah.
Public hearing, and looks like we were in control. And we asked them to speak, but it was not that attitude that we like to listen to their voices. So they were very, very upset. And the government actually set up a new format. All the ministers actually sitting in the audience, and the public on the podium, and they spoke. I mean, it's a very simple change of formatting, but it changed the psychological setting for the public. So my first response is that we should start to listen first.
Dr. Kim?
Yes, I agree with you on that point. I got the impression that in our talk, we talked about what should be done to achieve public consensus. But how it should be done is yet to be discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking and making it possible are different, quite different. In other words, it seems to me that nuclear community doesn't know how to deal with the general public, especially the local community. And the general public don't know about nuclear science, nuclear industry. They have difficulties in understanding the nature of nuclear
Technology.
nuclear science, nuclear technology, and don't know much about the necessity of nuclear power, including the energy security of Korea, especially Korea's situation is very serious, but they don't know much about the situation. So without that understanding, how can we narrow down the gaps, the huge gaps between those two parties?
Mhm.
That is our task to be resolved in order for the sustainability of nuclear industry. So how can it be done? Should be discussed in more detail, and there maybe the nuclear community need to change their conscience, and the sort of paradigm shift is necessary at this juncture of very delicate
Yes.
nuclear industry
Yes.
situation. Yeah.
Thank you. Perhaps we should open up for dialogue with the audience. We have a microphone. Joe Shine. Madam.
Thank you very much. A very interesting session that we've had. My name is Manpreet Sethi and I'm coming from India. And as you can see, it's a subject that is of great relevance to India at this moment. For about 40 years, India was under nuclear sanctions, so there wasn't the possibility of engaging with the outside community for international nuclear commerce. And it was only in 2008 that with the NSG exceptionalization, it became possible for India to indulge in international nuclear commerce. And Fukushima couldn't have happened at a more wrong time for India, because just as we were looking to opening up the program and having a very ambitious nuclear power program, things have come to a standstill because of the loss of public confidence after Fukushima. As I have seen from my experience, because we've had one nuclear power plant in the southern part of India, which is ready to go critical, but it has been stopped because of public protest against it. This is the light water reactor that India has built with the Russian collaboration. In my experience of these last 3 or 4 years, it has been that it's not just the information awareness. I mean, definitely the public is deficient on information, and there has been an approach of the nuclear establishment to be very arrogant and, distant from the public, and therefore we've run into these problems. But even more than information, I find there's an emotional disconnect with nuclear power. So it's not just about cognitive awareness, it's about how the emotional connect doesn't happen, and public acceptance therefore becomes an extremely important issue. Besides information spreading, it's also who is carrying that message. It's not just about the message, but the communication of that message and who's actually carrying that message. And we've seen that the nuclear establishment and the nuclear industry does not carry that credibility at this moment in time. So from your experience in your countries, could you share about who could be the communicators with the public?
Dr. Suzuki.
Yes, that's a very good question. I think that's a crucial issue right now. In the past, in the local community, the utilities are responsible for delivering a message. And the regulators, they will respond if there's any questions, but they are not actively engaged in the dialogue with the public. But they thought that was a responsibility of the local governments and the utilities. Now everybody lost trust right now. So we thought that from now on, particularly important is nuclear regulators should speak up more, and they should be talking to the public directly. They have this communication training program within the regulatory agency, but I don't think it's working very well. So I think your point is well taken. Who is delivering a message is one thing. And also, I believe that we need some kind of, somebody said, trusted information source. The regulator, of course, should be also trusted, but we need some kind of independent information source. In the past, in Japan, only pro-nuclear or anti-nuclear organization delivered the information. That was not, neither is trusted anymore. So we need some kind of independent, trusted organization. Thank you.
Dr. Han?
Very short comment
Yeah.
to your question. I think in the United States, the National Academy's role was very big. It has been very big. It is supposed to provide a neutral and well-balanced, technically competent advices, primarily to the government and Congress and also to the people. We had a discussion with Professor Suzuki after the accident. There is no such counterpart in Japan, and how we can develop such an organization in Japan in this case. So I think this is one good example.
I think the educated public is probably your best ally. When I was running a very large legacy nuclear cleanup program in the United States, we instituted Citizens Advisory Board throughout the complex. It doesn't work all the time, but it works fairly well in terms of educating the representatives of the community to become the true, unbiased advocate. We'll take 2 more short questions before we end. Yes, Joshan.
Yes. To rebuild public trust after something bad happened is always challenging. And not only you're continuously working harder, but it also takes time. from Chernobyl, it took more than 25 years before we even talking about, have some confidence to build again. So I believe that there is a need to be patient. We need time to overcome that. But in this time period, you have to do better. I do have a short question. Dave, you mentioning about culture, safety culture. The term certainly is intriguing, but it's very different. People have that term a different way, interpreted different way. Professor Ahn mentioning about TMI. When that operator shut off the valve, based on his training, that he will never allow the pressurizer to go full. What we're seeing the subsequent consequence of that. So, but that culture is proactive. You have to do something, especially for PWR. You have to respond in such a short time. But turn around in Fukushima. Of course, there are a lot of things being done. It's a bigger system. But in my personal opinion, I was in Tokyo during that time, that not sufficient action, at least from the operator standpoint, is to prevent some of the subsequent hydrogen explosion after the first one. And the time we're talking about is 77 hours. This is not 1 or 2 hours. So that time is indicating to me there must be some different culture that prevent or maybe alluded to the inaction to do something to prevent something subsequent happen. So having said that, the questions I have is the operator is really the first line of defense to any of these emergency accident situation. Should the industry, I'm talking about, again, not only the Western or the Asian industry, look specifically in that particular operator training. Professor Ahn mentioning about something similar to military. The U.S. operator in the early day come from the Navy. So they have that mentality that they have to do something very responsibly. And that system had not really percolated in many of the Asian operations. So this is the question that whether it's worthwhile to have some kind of a uniformity looking into the first line of defense to prevent accident from a reactor.
Let me give maybe a very short answer, and then we'll take the last question. The safety culture sounds simple, but is very complex. If you add what Dr. Ahn talked about, the uncertainties associated with the system behaviors and human behaviors, but I do think is very foundational. And there are ways we can standardize principles. I don't think we can dictate or regulate culture. However, one can talk about basic principles. And both INPO and UENO and many other organizations, NRC has various trainings. DOE has begun training on safety culture or safety conscious working environment. There are different versions of basically same concept, but I think the basic principles are very foundational and very commonsensical, yet, as always, it's very difficult to walk the talk. Dr. Kim talked about, it's easy enough to talk, but it's much more difficult to carry it on in terms of a deed. So, Dr. Ahn,
Let me add a very short remark to this. I think that's a great question, Dr. Choi. I think I love it. The word, the safety culture has been developed in the nuclear community for many years. But when you use this word, safety culture, to outside of the nuclear community, you have to be very careful. Because culture has its own meaning, established meaning in social sciences and humanities. And they have their own meaning and usage for many years. And so you'll be, I actually did encounter such a strong apathy of using safety culture when we talked. Yes.
Okay, one last question? Yes. We're running over a few minutes, but...
My question goes to Mr. Stricky. I would agree with everybody said that public confidence is very important. Confidence and transparent information is also important, and proper regulation is also important. But I don't think these three are the fulfilled conditions. These three should be followed by the institutional and technological improvement. In this respect, I would like to ask whether or not Japanese government, in the wake of the Fukushima disaster, have been thinking about the problems, the very reasons. And I understand that one of the weakest point was the introduction, derived from the introduction of the PWR boiling water reactors instead of the PWR pressurizing water reactors. So I understand that as far as the safety is concerned, PWR is superior than PWR, whereas as far as the energy efficiency is higher in this regard. So up to now, so is there any, there has been any public debate or debate among the technological experts about the technological improvement problems? Thank you.
A short answer, yes. And we do have many technological discussions. I don't think this is appropriate for me to talk about all technological issues right now, but there are many issues. Actually, Dr. Nan said some sort of resilience engineering is also, whatever the reactor types, we have to improve the safety. So those discussions is taking place, yes.
Well, I think we should conclude now. We're a few minutes over our allotted time. I want to thank the audience. I want to thank my distinguished and very dynamic panelists. I think this was a very useful session. Just a couple of comments. I think we need to continue to endeavor in both directions, technological advancement and this business about a better consensus building through effective communication, transparency. But I do think that we need to bring in more expertise instead of just relying on our traditional engineering approach. I think it's about time for us to bring in social science aspects, behavioral scientific ways of looking at ourselves. That's why I think the safety culture is such an important ingredient in terms of convincing the public. Sort of it's an inside-out approach. So I do think that we need to diversify ourselves, bring in different types of expertise that are available. And by working together in all those multi-directional areas, I think we will be more successful in terms of bringing together with a common understanding, a better understanding of what this nuclear safety business is all about, as well as sharing some common values and insights. So I want to thank you with that remark.